Call the meeting to order. Those of us here at HQs, go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Any amendments to the agenda? Going once, going twice. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda. It's moved by Commissioner Farnahoff and seconded by Commissioner Teoflack. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Fantastic, passes. Consent agenda. 2 items, healthcare EFT claims totaling $113,805.97. And claims vouchers 13240 to 13290 totaling $293,812.52. Chair would like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Moved by Commissioner Teoflack, seconded by Commissioner Farnahoff. All those, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, there we are. Hey there, Commissioner Lawrence. Approval of a meeting minutes from the January 17th special meeting, the January 17th regular meeting, the January 30th special meeting, and the February 14th special meeting.
Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to separate each meeting because I'm not present in all the meetings.
Okay.
Do separate approval on separate.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the minutes one at a time. Commissioner Lawrence approves the January 17th special meeting. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Teoflack, Commissioner Teoflack beat you to the call there. But is there any discussion for that meeting? None appearing. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, carries. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the January 17th regular meeting.
Go ahead, Chris.
Commissioner Chan
Yeah.
moves.
Your motion,
Commissioner Farnahoff seconds the motion. Hey, there we go. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor say nay. All right. Motion carries. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the January 30th special meeting minutes. Commissioner Lawrence, is that a you motion? All right, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Teoflack. Any discussion?
I would abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions? 1, Commissioner Chan, thank you. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the February 14th special meeting. Moved by Commissioner Teoflack. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lawrence. Thank you. Any discussion?
No.
None appearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. On to public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak? If so, get up to 3 minutes. Please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Fire Chief's report. We are on to Chief Eastman. Chief Hovis has been out today with a migraine, so.
So this will be really quick. Chris, if you pull up the PowerPoint real quick. I know Chief O has had the normal COVID stuff and the calls demographics, and if that hasn't been sent today, it will be sent tomorrow to you. Or when Chief's back and feeling good, we'll get that back out. So just a couple things to highlight. Upcoming events. The big one is Thursday, March 9th. So it's next Thursday night. We're doing a neighborhood night, Briar Fire Station. That's station 18, 5:30 to 7. And if you look, the open house is coming in the future. We have one on the 13th of April at Station 19 in Montlake Terrace, and then May 20th at the Station 17 downtown Edmonds to just, you know, we'd love to see you at those events, and the next one's next Thursday. Next slide, please. We do this on I can't remember if we did it last year. I don't know what we've been doing with the Nick of Time as a result of COVID, but we've done this in years past. This is the Nick of Time Foundation Heart Screening. It was done at Jackson High School. And here's the crew from our department that were there. And what this does is it checks for cardiac issues, heart screenings for kids in high school. And they also do AED and CPR training at the same time. This is one of the things that we do on a very regular basis, and Local 1828 supports it also. And again, they were out and did that earlier this week or last week. Next slide. I know some of you, I don't know if any of the board attended the Linwood City address. Here's a picture of Shawnery Guzman was given an award by Council President Sessions. And here's a picture of them at that event. Next slide. Mayor Kay from City of Briar did a ride along with us. I believe it was last week, Friday. And I want to say he had 3 good EMS calls and a fire commercial. So he got a good view of what we do in the RFA from a response perspective. And he had a lot of fun. You saw the inner child in him come out again. And then the next slide. My guess is you guys have seen this in the news. Just north of 128th on I-5. Was it last week? Was it Thursday or Wednesday? Thursday morning. We had a semi tractor trailer with hay that started fire. And for anybody who knows hay fires, they are a challenge to say the least. And most of those require you to take the hay bales apart, spread it to get the fire out. It was initially Station 21 that responded. And as you can see, we brought in airport fire, Payne Field, foam applications, and I want to say it snarled up traffic for, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 hours before they had it resolved. Event that was in the paper, lots of media coverage. And yeah.
After you finish I want to have a question on this. Yeah.
Is there another slide, Chris, or is that it? Oh, and a longtime firefighter, and I don't recall how many years Captain Woods has with the department. I think he's our most senior firefighter now that Stretch is gone. Joel came to us from the city of Edmonds, longtime captain, and is going to have a well-deserved retirement. And wanted to let you guys know that one of our most tenured firefighter captains is retiring. And that is it. So I'll take any questions.
Yeah, and the questions on the infield, somehow I can mix information. They said that they cannot go outside of the airport, but then on certain limited area, because they cannot come out because they have to be there to, yeah.
So there's a combination of things. I don't know, and maybe Jason or Sean know. I know there's special circumstances you can get them. They also have agreements with Boeing, who has their own fire department that can cover some of the airfield. And so there is the ability for them to participate. There's just, they have to ensure that the airport has the appropriate fire protection needs, and whether that's, if Boeing can support them, then they can allow their units to come offsite, like in this case. And there's times where if Boeing's unavailable because of stuff they're doing, and they have to have a minimum amount of firefighting capability on the airport for it to stay open,
Right.
then they wouldn't be able to come. And Sean, is that so? So there is, it just depends. And this happened early enough in the morning where in this case, we would have caught him at shift change, and knowing the airport fire chief and the need like that, There's the ability for them to call people in or work through that to get it out. But so there are circumstances we wouldn't get them, but the airport is a mutual aid partner with everybody else as long as they maintain the
Safety protocols.
capabilities on the airport to keep it open.
But also on the other side, then we have to go in, we have to help them.
They're a mutual aid partner of ours too. So if something happened at the airport, we go. Yes.
Because they were, all my time here, there was always talks, we, merge of them and all that stuff, but one of the concern I have, there was demonstrated in San Francisco, remember that the big situation, San Francisco would fly over and kill someone because cannot see in the phone. Is that be a problem if we somehow mutual aid, don't we need to some kind of practice? So we know.
We do. We practice in their aircraft drills. We do their tabletops annually. Right. And they got a tabletop coming up in May. We do and participate in their live exercise when they actually have people moulaged and all that and respond. So we are active participants in the training efforts out at the airport. So
Where else was that? Mukilteo is also Everett?
Mukilteo, Everett, I think they expanded. I don't know how far they've gone over time. I know Granite Falls has been out there. I know Getchell's has been out there. Depending on the scenario, if they have a commercial aircraft that goes down with 160, 170 people,
Right.
you're going to bring resources from all over. And really what happens is you'll have most of us that surround them as first in mutual aid. And then what they'll bring in is strike force, task force, and they'll leapfrog usually. So they don't just wipe out everything, and they'll bring in a strike team from East County. So we don't take all of one area of the county and strip it of all its resources so we can continue to protect what's left. So, but you would get people from Skagit County, you get people from King County that would come up too, based on what they have and what they need.
Yeah, because airports come in usually, they have a lot of fuel, they have a lot of other stuff in there, right? You have to be really careful because that can spread very quickly on the planes and stuff like that. So we are pretty well trained, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we don't drive the airport property like the airport firefighters do, right?
Right.
But by the time we get called in, all that's clear, right? The airport's not running anymore. So they're not putting us in a bad place to do that. We do some training on aircraft. I will tell you, I did that for many, many, many years in the Guard. And they're just a different kind of vehicle, right? Airplanes are made out of aluminum. A lot of vehicles we take care of on the freeways now are made out of aluminum. The fuel issues are the same. The electrical issues are the same. The safety equipment on airplanes, safety equipment on cars. So they're things that you don't you don't have aircraft incidents very often, but a small airplane that crashes is like a car accident. It just happens to be an airplane.
Well, because now it's commercial now, that's my
Yeah.
concern.
And you end up with a larger aircraft,
Right.
more fuel. They have supplemental oxygen, which is things you got to worry about. They've got a different kind of battery that actually can cause you challenges too. That's different than a car battery. And they have other safety things. They're life rafts, what people don't normally think of, life rafts with fire and some other things that you have to be aware of. But our guys and gals in the streets are more than capable of assisting at the airport. Because we would be following their command's lead, right? And so, and we would be doing things that we're qualified and capable of doing.
So how many people are there on duty at any time? A small amount,
I want to say, is it 6 now? It's changed.
Right.
I think it's 6 on duty every day. I could be wrong.
So anytime they have any kind of accident, they gotta get our help.
It depends on the type of emergency,
Yeah.
right? So, it just depends on the type of emergency and what they're dealing with.
Okay.
It is not uncommon for us to go out there. We go out there routinely
All right.
on aid calls. And we've been probably our largest scale mass casualty events are done with them, and we've been doing it for over 25 years. So probably the most robust MCI training that we do is with them on a regular basis.
I think you mentioned, I haven't seen it for a long time. For the balancing, right, how much we go out, how much we go in, people come to us, I would like to, at least have this discussion on this day. To kind of, to gauging what we've been doing, that would be great. All right, thank you.
That's all I have for Chief. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that responding to airplane disasters or crashes is not is rare, but not out of the not out of the realm of possibility. During my time on the board, there have been at least 2 crashes off of the south or southwest part of the runway. At least one of those was on still on airport property, but it'd be very easy to have a crash on the south end of the runway. South end of the runway is South County Fire. And so we'll be the ones, I mean, the airport probably comes off to be in charge because they're the experts on airplanes, but we'll be right there, or we may be there first. So it's definitely an issue for us because, you know, flip a coin, it crashes off the north end and it's Everett's fault problem, or car crashes off the south end and it's our problem. But either way, I mean, 50% chance it's us. And those are, you know, could be mass casualty events. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something to definitely train for.
I'd ask Chris to bring the slide back so I could write down the dates, and
Oh.
thank you for putting the days of the week in there.
That's all Leslie Hines.
Just a comment. I know at least in my email account and calendars, these events aren't getting sent out to the commissioners. Is there a way that we could set up either a shared calendar that you guys can post these to that we have access to, or the invites to these events so that we can get them on our calendars without having to, you know,
So
shut them
let
down
me,
at the meeting?
let me work with
Awesome.
the group and figure out who the best is to make that happen. Right now, I think Shawnery and Leslie just adds that to what they do, but let me talk to IT and Melissa and the group and figure out the best way to make sure that gets to where you want it, whether it's on your district email, Outlook, or however way to make sure you're aware of things are going and get them so you can see it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chief Eastman, for the report. Legal report with our attorney, Matt Paxton.
Good evening, commissioners. Thanks for having me. Richard Davis is out this week, so he asked me to come present on the legal report. It's my first legal report, but I understand that Richard typically just goes through what we've done for the district generally over the last month, so I made myself familiar with that work. Over the last month, we've assisted in some legal matters involving annexation of Mountain Lake Terrace, including finalizing legal documents and going through the SEPA review. We've advised South County Fire on how it's responding to public record requests and retention of certain medical records. We've advised on real estate matters, employee policies, and we're handling some potential litigation. That's kind of the scope of what we've done over the last month. I'm open to questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions? Oh, you got off light tonight, Matt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Mac, I just want to say thank you for you and Frank coming down on last week.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I got a phone call this evening. Let me know that we're not going to have a union report. They are in Washington, DC, handling business. So we should have something next week. And so we are on to the public hearing for Mountain Lake Terrace. So at this time, I open the public hearing for public comment on the annexation of Mountain Lake Terrace. Does anybody from the public wish to come forward? There's nobody here at HQ. Is there anybody online? All right, no requests. I go ahead and close the public hearing and on to the resolution itself. Resolution for action in support of Mountain Lake Terrace ballot measure to annex into the South Snohomish County Fire and Rescue RFA with Assistant Chief Bob Eastman.
Good evening again. If you go to page 40 of your packet, you'll find the agenda bill that explains that the board has the ability to do a resolution in support of a ballot measure from a neighboring jurisdiction. In this case, the city of Montlake Lake Terrace is on the ballot for the special election, April 25th. With asking the voters if they would like to annex into RFA. If you go to page 42, you will see the resolution before you. It's the same as what you passed for the city of Briar, with the appropriate changes made for the city of Montlake Terrace's ballot measure. And if there's no questions, it's ready for board approval.
Thank you.
What's the vote?
Okay.
threshold? Yeah, what's the vote threshold? Is it like 50% plus one?
Simple majority.
Cool.
The chair would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution 03072023-08, expressing support of ballot measure for the city of Montlake Terrace to annex into South Snohomish County Fire and Rescue Regional Fire Authority.
So moved.
Been moved by Vice Chair Rowland,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Kenny. Any further conversation?
I just
All right.
want to make comments. I'm happy to completely support this. It's a long time coming. I'm happy. It's a realization.
18 years coming, right?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
I
All those opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, legislative update with Assistant Chief Maxwell and then it's just Assistant Chief Eastman.
So Chief Maxwell's gonna take this.
All right, we just did some research on a few selected bills. The first one is concerning moving the fire oversight out from under the Washington State Patrol into a state fire director model. That would include the deployments we do, general oversight, the fire marshal's office. That is stuck in committee. They think it might be tied to funding. Around wildland issue, one of the critical things is getting air attack early to stop these fires. And the local fire departments don't call air attack because they're worried about being on the hook for the costs, and they're working on a mechanism so that they can get air support quickly and not be worried about paying for that. There's some pension issues. Those are mainly administrative. I know Commissioner Fairnoff does know, he worked on the volunteer pension stuff, and it looks like that passed out of the House, and it's basically administrative to they had the reserve officers and the volunteer firefighters together, and new IRS rules said that you couldn't do that. So they basically had to separate those two programs, and that gets them in line with federal law, taxing law. Healthcare system improvements, the co-responder training, that is an initiative to help with funding for programs like our social workers out of the fire department and stuff. That looks like it's going well. Funding is questionable. They're looking at maybe some mechanisms that we might be able to bill for that work. So that's moving along. The hospital capacity and ER wait times, that's passed out of the Senate. That looks like it's going to be less of a mandates around staffing and more around a study on what the staffing should be. And then the local property tax limit, the Senate Bill 5618, that is just still in committee. And that concludes my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Commissioner Fairnoff, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a real quick question about ordering air attack. That's one of the reasons why FEMA has something called the Fire Management Assistance Grant. It's for initial attack and basically providing open-ended funding for those kinds of resources. Was that incorporated at all in the discussion?
No, it looked like it was more around the state and DNR.
Okay. Just curious, because that program does exist, and that's one of the reasons it's supposed to open up any or knock down the barriers that an IC that otherwise might, feel inhibited by. So thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Rowland.
With HB 1134, with the CRP, how many, do we know how many other departments in the area are running a CRP other than us?
Last I checked, there were probably maybe 6 to a dozen around the state.
Okay.
It's a national problem. Everybody tries to set them up and then they run out of funding, or they get funding for a little while, then they lose them. It's one of the biggest topics on community paramedicine nationally is how do we fund these things?
Gotcha. All right, so I guess if it does pass and there's funding out there, we're gonna see a lot more usage. So the slice of the pie is gonna get smaller than it currently would be. But at least it'd be something.
It could.
Good start.
Yeah, it could. It looks like that's pretty wide on what they're going to do. But even looking at Medicare and Medicaid, if they set up a model, then it might not be, it's just a regular billing like we would bill for transport. So it might not be a scarcity pie situation. But it looks like there's still a lot to go on how the funding mechanisms would work there.
Cool.
Does that?
Yeah, there's, I know Sean talked about the funding. There's a separate piece of this where they put in a request for budget dollars for this program. 4 million for fiscal year 24, 3 million for fiscal year 25. When Sean talks about Medicare and Medicaid and dollars to help fund this, that requires an amendment to the state plan. Because it's how you allocate. So there's multiple pieces for funding, and what Sean was talking about with Medicare and Medicaid, at least the Medicaid side, there's a whole nother process to get Medicaid to pay for it. And it's not something that happens fast. And so, but it dovetails onto the work Sean has already done with CRP stuff and legislation that we previously passed. And so these are additional pieces to expand some of the work that, Sean and some of the other folks started 5, 6, 7 years ago when we first got this in play and got the legislation in front of the folks in Olympia. I guess the reason I bring it up is funding for this. If we get the dollars and cents that they've asked for the budget, is the author of the House bill is also put in the subsequent paperwork for the dollars in fiscal year 24-25. And then what Sean's talking about requires a state plan amendment. I won't bore you with what that is, but those processes take a little bit of time to get them in place to be able to do what we're talking about. So it doesn't happen fast. This is kind of the first step, and it paves the way for us to have those conversations and look at funding mechanisms to follow when the legislation is passed and allows us to do it. I just want to make sure we know that the dollars and cents, just like everything else, is the hardest thing to get. Once we get the approval to do some of these things, then it's where's the funding come from? And we've been talking about, that for a long time. So I just wanted to set some realistic expectations on when we think this dollars and cents potentially are there. And there's multiple different steps to get to that place.
So that I understand, are you saying that these multiple funding sources will slowly ramp up the funding available across the state? Or is this $4 million estimate, assuming all of them come in? Or-
Nope. So there's, and Sean, I can't remember what I called it. There's a request that the legislators put in to get budget dollars. So there's been a request for the same sponsor of this bill to ask for $4 million in fiscal year 24 and $3 million in fiscal year 25 to support this legislation. So that's one piece. Then when Sean talks about Medicaid, Medicare, that's a different funding stream that the way I see it is if we get the funding for fiscal year 24 and 25, that buys us a couple years to get all the other things we need to get done to get Medicare or Medicaid to help fund these programs, because it takes a couple years to negotiate those agreements with CMS and how you amend the state plan to appropriate Medicare's dollars. So it's a long-winded way of saying first piece of money buys time for maybe the second, which is the
Well,
Medicaid,
And to
Medicare.
back up, I mean, and some of you already know this, but 10 years ago, we saw our social services calls coming up, our behavioral mental health, our primary care, which are really non-emergency, which now is really the majority of the calls we go on. So 10 years ago, we looked at our data and you could see the trend line happening right there. We create our community medic program. Now you're seeing everybody else is like crying like, oh no, we need to set these programs up yesterday. We're not in as much of a panic. They're like, but we get contacted from people all over saying, how do we start this? We're in a panic. We've got to get this going. And during these last 10 years, the feds did a program called ET3 trying to fund this, had so many red tapes and so many little requirements, nobody could really qualify. Then the state did the same thing and the healthcare authority put in so many things. For example, we were so close to it's called ET3 and the feds, this has gone on for years. It would have helped fund this program. We were this close and there was one line in it that said, you must have a 24-hour urgent care center. We have probably a 22-hour urgent. We don't, and nowhere in this county do we have that tiny little thing. But it wasn't just us. This happened across the country. Same thing with the state funds and the healthcare authority. Bob and I were actually, we would go down to Olympia and have arguments down there with the healthcare authority saying this red tape is ridiculous. So while we're still looking for stable funding, and we're probably better off than most because there isn't enough money to have enough aid cars, medicants, and fire trucks to keep up with the growing behavioral, social, primary. There'll never be enough money or enough resources. The nice thing is we have a framework. We have a very good working model. We just need to keep making it sustainable.
Do we have a formalized program for, I guess, evangelizing or providing that information out? Or is it more, they come to us and we
I've
schedule time?
They'll fly me out and I've spoke nationally. I've gone back up to Canada and spoke at the IFF conferences. Our model, it's not hard. I always say this is not hard. This is not rocket science what we're doing. And then we've had people fly in from all over. I think one of the most recent ones, I was telling Commissioner, Anchorage, Alaska flew down to figure out our model. Did
you say other countries have been curious, like Australia and so forth?
Well, I did the research on UK, Australia, and Canada. And because they were doing it 10 years before we were. But I just came full circle when Canada invited us back up because we looped around and they're like, oh, we want to see what you're doing now. And I go, I have to give you guys credit because we got the basics from you. And now we've just evolved. And Seattle started their health one and it was all over the news and everything. I'm like, oh, we've been doing this for 10 years.
Any other questions?
It looks like that bill did pass the House, so it's on to the Senate.
We're good.
The 1134.
1134, yep. I was just looking it up as we were talking.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Real-time updates.
95 to 0.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, with that, we will go into, thank you for the report, Chief. New business with our IT manager, Chris Gobenfeld, IT security audit for discussion.
Awesome. Good evening. Let me pull this guy up real quick. So bringing this forward to you guys mainly just for discussion, just wanted to present what our plan is and what we're looking to do. Before I actually jump into the actual item we're discussing, I did just want to highlight, I think you guys all, I know that I've seen the priority list for the board, and I know security is on there. I'm sure that's from a physical and a technology standpoint. So I did just want to outline real quick a couple of the highlighted items that we're kind of targeting right now for security related stuff. We're trying to spin up, we have the licensing already. We're already doing fish testing of users. Some of you guys may have already seen those emails coming out, mainly just to, see how people will react if an actual fish or an actual threat comes into the environment. So those are going out on a regular basis. We are trying to also spin up some routine training courses, which we're going to kind of select out of the material that's provided through the program we use. Right now, that's not going on a regular basis, and I really want to get that spun up. We've been working on really fine tuning some of the just the email protections, because email is one of the biggest threat points that something can come into the organization. So we've been working on some of those filters. In some cases, it does unfortunately provide more than we would like, and things get blocked that shouldn't, but the hope is that we can stop those things and let them through if they are legitimate. We're currently actually evaluating the antivirus and malware programs that we currently have on all RFA computers. Things change all the time, so just constantly looking at vendors and making sure we're on the right platform for us. We're looking at that right now. We're working on putting in place some web filtering, just for mainly in the building, but potentially also on laptops outside of the building, so it doesn't bring anything back into the buildings. We're currently also evaluating applications that we use and making sure that we are on the latest version. And if we're not, what is the actual, steps to take to get to the latest version to make sure we don't have any vulnerabilities there as well. Evaluating user permissions to make sure that we are on a place of least privilege access, so that people only have access to what they need to have, and can't modify things that they're not supposed to. That falls into both programs and just file structures in general. And then the last one I kind of mentioned already, but just constantly evaluating what products are out there. Are we using the right things for us? Is there something we should drop, something we should add? Security is a big thing. So that leads into why I actually brought this forward, which is we are looking at engaging the Washington State Auditor's Office, who has a dedicated team that performs IT audits or IT security audits for public agencies such as ours. The main thing is to bring in a third party. Obviously, we look at systems every day, so it's often easy to overlook something that you see every day. So the audits are very typical to have. It's a good idea to have a third party come in, and the hope is that they may find something or they may see something from a different perspective that we might need to address. And we're not required to do anything that they find. It's mainly just to provide us with the information so that we can assess what the vulnerabilities are or what might be found, and determine if it's a risk we're willing to take, or if there is something we want to do either immediately or in the future to correct. They'll be bringing in subject matter experts to hopefully, they're experts in very specific items rather than us being generalists in a lot of different things. So again, hopefully they'll find stuff that we aren't aware of, or maybe they won't, and we're in great shape. That's great too. They're also just going to be looking at the actual standards that are put in place by the Centers for Internet Security Controls, and just making sure that we are aligning with other industries that are similar to ours and what the standards are. And I kind of skipped into the next one there. And then just at the end, they provide reports along the way as they go through the various steps, and I'll be working pretty closely with them to make sure whoever needs to be involved is involved. And then they provide reports if something critical is found, but then at the very end, they provide a comprehensive report that we can review and again, take action where necessary and go through it from there. Just some of the items that the audit does include, the rest of them are outlined in the engagement letter in the packet. But the main things are they're going to be doing vulnerability testing. inside the organization just to see where things might be in there. Controls assessments, so they'll ask us to do some interviews, mainly with IT. We may involve some other people as well. Questionnaires, just how do we do things so that they know what other items that they may need to bring in to assess things. They're going to do a penetration testing through a third-party vendor. Again, just looking at the outside coming in and making sure that we have our front door locked, I guess, so that people can't just come in that way. And then again, comprehensive report at the end. That's the big thing that we're looking to get to. Hopefully the things that I put in the very beginning, the hope is that from the report, we can reassess, reprioritize, and address things that may be found that need to be addressed more quickly. Timeline, and costs. No cost to the RFA. It's a service that's funded. I can't remember how it is funded, but the one thing that is noted and why I'm bringing it to you guys today is because it is free of cost, the agreement is that there will be a public hearing at the end of it where anybody can bring something forward or a concern or whatever it might be. They do provide a public report, which is basically very heavily redacted. It just pretty much says, we did this. Because obviously you don't want any specific security issues to be presented to the public. So that will be there. Timeline on it. It takes about 8 to 10 months to complete. So it's pretty comprehensive from what I can see, but they do it in phases. So they'll, tackle one thing 1 month and just, it will take a significant amount of time on IT's part just to make sure that we're getting them all the information they need. But I definitely think it's an important thing to do. And unless there's any concerns with doing it, the plan is to try and kick it off next month. We just need to get Chief to sign the engagement letter and then we'll go forward from there. Pretty much it.
Thank you.
Any
Any
questions?
Just one real quick. Do we currently carry cybersecurity insurance?
That is a good question. I do recall hearing that we have it, but I don't know for sure. So I'd have to verify. I don't know if anybody else knows. I believe we do have something, but I'd have to double check.
We'll bring that back at the work session and just let you know. I think we do too. I just don't remember. We had lots of discussions about it. And I'm trying to think back of where we landed with it. So let us go and talk to Shane and get the policy so we can give you what our policy covers and what it doesn't cover. And we can provide that at the work session if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Farnoff and then Commissioner Kenny. Commissioner Farnoff?
Yeah, real quick, Chris, you and I had a brief discussion about cybersecurity and infrastructure security alerts as they come out from CISA. Is there a plan in place should another alert come out that you receive that you'll pass on to the commissioners to say that we're in a heightened state of sort of awareness? If one of those alerts comes out, it's not guaranteed that I'm going to capture it necessarily and pass it as I did prior. So assuming that you're on the distro, or at least Chief, if somebody's on the distro, that somebody nets that and then repopulates it to us.
I can definitely take a look at that. I did sign up for the list that you had sent out. And just so happens the day after that you had sent that, the list I was signed up on did send out almost the identical message. It was just more delayed than the one that you had sent. So
Gotcha.
we are part of those lists. I do look them over. So as far as notifying the commissioners, if that's something that you guys would like to, we can definitely look at that and go from there.
I think it's only the real big,
Yeah. I'm not gonna send out something that says like someone has a vulnerability or something like that.
Right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Commissioner Kenny.
Chris, can you refresh our recollection about how, including you, how many FTEs do we have in IT and what are we currently doing consulting outside to support the internal employees in IT?
You're just talking about actual employees on staff. Is that correct?
Right, but then also what you're doing in terms of consultant, bringing in outside consultants
Sure.
to assist.
Sure. As of right now, there's 3 people on the IT team, including myself. So we have me, our system admin, who's primarily doing most of the server related stuff, a little bit of the security stuff. And then Lori Robertson, who is our desktop analyst, who I'm sure you guys all know. We are still contracted and we do still have IS outsource on a retainer there. For the most part, my goal has been to try and bring as much in-house, which is my understanding was the reason for the actual staffing increase that happened last year as well, with the system admin. We've been operating with that. As of right now, it is starting to show that there is going to be need for probably more than that. So we do still have IS outsource. I'm actually having a meeting with one of our technicians on Friday to discuss some things on what we might be able to get them involved with. But as of right now, they really haven't done much with us in the last 5 months since I've been here. I think I've been here longer than 5 months, but anyways, we're trying to do as much internally, but we do contract out with them, and we do have a couple of security specific vendors that are that stuff was applied prior to my coming into the organization that we do consult with, and they're available if any kind of security concerns specifically come up as well.
How would you assess, not getting into detail, but giving the board an overall assessment of, our IT security, good, bad, moderate, red lights blinking?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about kind of our overall state of affairs in that department?
That's a really hard thing to assess, I think, because there's so many different levels you can look at it. I think that from like a hardware perspective, we're keeping up on things. So at least major systems are in warranty. We're actually targeting replacing some servers that are coming into life this year as well. From a security perspective, I think we have a lot of systems in place. I don't know that they are all completely deployed where they should be. And that's part of what I put the vendor assessments on there right now, is figuring out which of those to really deploy 100% and which ones are kind of overlaps. I'm not a big fan of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. I'd like to make sure that what we're doing is targeting what we should be. So I think we're in relatively good shape, but that doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement. And with the security landscape constantly changing, I mean, it's like every other day you hear about something that's happening and should we make changes to combat that kind of thing. So it's a constant battle, but I mean, I would say we're in pretty decent shape. That's not to say that there's not room for improvement, and that's a constant thing we're trying to do. So yeah. Is that
Yeah, no, that's what I was interested in.
I'm not running out the door right now. So
Okay.
that
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's my concern, is that we are adequately staffed for all of the IT challenges that we have, because we've tackled IT in different ways in the past. And I always remember, I think it was IS Outsource, I asked that question to many years ago, and particularly in the context of threat assessments, and South County Fire being a small government agency, and the response was, that's state actors, they go after big fish. But then ever since surfer got attacked, that's 4 years ago now, maybe it's 4 years, 3 years. It's been a little while, but ever since they were attacked and held hostage, it's an issue for local governments right around us. So it's just something that we've got to not only spend enough time on, but spend enough money on to make sure that we are keeping up.
Yeah. No, and there may be more that we should be doing, and that's what we're looking at. So, and that's my hope with the audit as well, is I'd like to get that baseline to see what a third party looks like too.
Let me ask you another question, about the audit itself.
Mhm.
So it's, I've heard of this before. I don't know how long ago it was, a year or two, that they did this audit, but they come in and do our financial audit every year.
Yep.
And how can I gently say it? If I was running a quasi-government agency and I was hiring auditors to come in and audit my company, and I wanted the best audits possible, I probably wouldn't choose the rookie auditors to come in every year and audit me. And so the auditor's office suffers from some systemic problems regarding
Retention.
not
Tenureship.
retention, but the auditors that they have doing the actual work, who are lovely people and work very hard, might not be the most experienced people. And so I'm just wondering about the quality of this audit. And I'm a little concerned that it's 10 months long. Or whatever, I was quite long.
Yep.
Is it, I believe you said it, well, you didn't actually say what the cost was. I was gonna
It's
say
free.
free, but it's
Yeah.
not free.
Yeah.
Is it free?
It's
Yeah.
no cost to us.
You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you get what you pay for. So, I'm
It,
just wondering if are we getting what we're hoping we're getting, or would we be better off to go pay for a private company to come in and audit us?
Sure. That is a valid concern and something we brought up. And one thing that I had noted too is we do have funds that were set aside for an audit. And my intention was it doesn't hurt to have two as well. So if we're not getting results that we're hoping to get and it's not working out, we're not like contracted to complete it with them. Like the details in here is very much like just telling us what they're gonna do. It's not that we have to do anything. So it is something we can do, but it sounds like, well, let's just say the guy that I've been talking with talks a good game and they do have valid credentials on the actual team. So
Okay.
I'm curious to see how it is, but that is a concern I had too. And if it does come down to it, we can still engage a third party as well.
Okay, you'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say I feel like in the past, I have run these kind of things at other organizations as well. And it feels like almost any company that does this, they use very similar tool sets. They provide very similar looking
Mhm.
reports. So I would be apt to say probably seeing similar stuff from them, but we'll see.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, having worked in the industry for a long time, I would echo that. A lot of them are kind of the same tool sets. If you want to get somebody that goes outside of those type of tool sets, those get pretty pricey to have, you know, non-automated actual red team attacks to your environment. And, but,
Yeah.
as a policy and kind of governance body that we are, have you reviewed the security policies that have been approved in the past in regards to IT? And do any of those need any sort of adjustments ahead of, or I would assume in response to, we'll find something, but ahead of that you'd like to bring back to us to just get some refreshers on those? I don't know the last time that they were looked at or updated.
Honestly, I would have to review those to take a look, but again, with security being an ever-changing thing, it wouldn't surprise me that something needs to be addressed, but I'd definitely take a look at them more closely, but also depending upon what this comes of and just other things we find, evolving is always a good thing.
The other thing is, I guess it was Commissioner Kenny kind of asked you about, having another firm possibly do it. I know that we sometimes kind of make requests up here in a not necessarily so formal way. So I'm just gonna make a motion real quick to direct IT to go out and get bids and also information on how long those would take in relationship to it. A lot can happen in 10 months while we're waiting for this one to get done. And if we haven't had one in a while and one could be done in a month or two time period, it might behoove us to be able to know about that and look at it. So my motion is that we obtain some bids for a security assessment.
Can you quantify some?
I don't know what the requirements are for bids and dollar amounts of things like that,
Up to
but
3 bids?
I think we can, I think what you said gives me enough to actually go back and do. I mean, I think I know what you're looking for and I think we can have staff go back and do that and then when Chris gets all the information and we'll utilize Shane Jensen and the rest of the team does purchasing and we'll bring something back. And if we can get ideas of cost prior to going to a formal RFP, we can do that too, right? We can bring estimated costs for what Chris thinks we need with regards to what he envisions we need from a security audit perspective and get what a company can do that for and the costs associated with it. And that should be fairly easy to bring back, I would think. And then if it requires formal RFP, and I'd have to go back and look and see if we'd have to do a formal RFP for those, or if we can just pick somebody to do it. But we'll work with purchasing and we'll bring you what we know. If we can do a little bit of homework, if we don't get it by next week, maybe we can do a quick update in the Trish report at the last meeting of the month. And then bring you what we know then. And then if we'll have a quick conversation about it. And if we want to do more formal things after that, based on what you hear, we can do that. If we think we need to do that anyway, staff can start moving down that direction also. So does that work for what you're talking about?
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure we kind of aren't unclear about looking into it. One
Chris.
last question. We talked about prevention, the assessment side of things. We talked about kind of what we currently have or getting, proactive testing done. The last thing I wanted to just ask a question on is response. A, do we have documented response plans around security incidences? And B, are you the response team? I know we don't have that many IT people, so what does that look like? Number one, I don't need all the details. We can talk about details offline. But the second piece is have we looked into security operations center type offerings that are out there to have a team that monitors our environment and can alert and respond to threats? Teams that are working on it day in, day out and don't have to, go, okay, crap, this is the first time I've ever done it. What do I do? Not to downplay your skills. I just know unless you're working in it day in, day out, it's a tough thing to keep on top of.
A lot of questions there. I'll try and address them all. Yes, I am pretty much first level response along with Brian. We're kind of doing like a rotating, if a page comes in kind of thing. We do have a couple of the security vendors we are using currently are monitoring certain systems, and they are authorized to take action if certain things come up. It is not covering everything by any means. And in many cases, it's kind of, they send us an alert and we can ask them to take action. But for the most part, we're involved with most of it, unless it's like there's a couple of systems that actually take automated actions if it sees something weird going on the network and it blocks it for a specific period of time. So some of that's already in place. As far as engaging an actual SOC team, it's something that we could definitely look into. I mean, I've looked into it for previous jobs before. It's definitely on the list, but it's not at the top of the list based upon the stuff that I know currently. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be. And then as far as the response plans, to my knowledge, I have not seen those as of this point, and that is on my list to work on. Right now, it's kind of doing the day-to-day stuff and finding the time to go back and do the actual policies and stuff like that. But that is on the list. To my knowledge, I have not seen it, but I would have to go back and review if there is one or not. And again, review it to make sure it actually still makes sense as well.
Yeah, it's like backup plans. Unless you test the backup plan and practice it, when it does go down, it takes a lot longer to respond to it and to get things done. So,
yep.
I understand the constraints on your time and things like that. I want to make sure that we're adequately staffed, or if we're not adequately staffed for certain things, that we engage services that can, make sure that we're in a good posture. Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence, you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, I had a question, let's see, for Chris. Are we big enough to hire a specialist in security? Cybersecurity, security in general?
I don't think that there's really a size of when you should have one. I know small companies that have them. They're very expensive, and there's services that I think you can contract with that would be a more beneficial use of time. Plus you're getting like a whole team of security experts rather than just one person's perspective.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You could have been a yes or no. No, I guess at this time.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. I didn't have this question when I first raised my hand, but
You want us to come back to you?
no, Micah raised his the issue of a motion.
Oh, yeah,
And-
he made a motion, but it was never seconded, and it sounded like staff was able to move forward without a formal. motion.
Yeah, because I mean, first, I think motions, I thought we're even that we don't want the staff springing stuff on us to make a vote on. So, yeah. But also I think that that seminar about governance that we had, this is where we start managing, because I know Micah has a expertise in this, so he's gonna think up things for this. I mean, we just laid on a requirement to the staff. And this is the thing that I'm opposed to. I'm opposed to everybody with their brilliant ideas, thinking of what the staff can do, like they're managing this thing that are the managers. I'd really like people to think about not trying to direct the staff with things to do, because it's a bright idea they just got. Because I don't think that's the way we need to go. And if you have a bright idea like that, just suggest it to the staff if it's something they want to consider. But like suggesting to make a motion that they do it, that's the mentality we got to get away from. Thank you.
I just want to respond and say I do respect that, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that my day job and trying to get into running day-to-day operations or making, you know, detailed suggestions about which technologies to use or things like that. I'm trying to keep as high level as possible with these, but understanding because the motion or the item that is on the floor is about getting a free assessment, making sure, and since it was brought up that, you know, it's going to take so long, I just wanted to make sure that there's been times in the past where I've gotten feedback from various people that they weren't sure if they were supposed to go and bird dog something down or not. And
Commissioner Kenny asked if they had already given that consideration. We should have accepted that. Okay, just like, then let's move on to other stuff. And then you go on for 15 minutes.
Micah, the vice chair has the
Thank you.
floor.
Thank you. In any event, you know, I guess the feedback that I got was if you want to make sure that something gets done, at least start down the road of a motion, and that is what we are as a body. We make motions. So that's what I did. So I'm not trying to direct day-to-day operations or anything like that. But when it comes to the security posture and making sure that we are covered from a governance standpoint and that we are secure, I want to make sure that that's forefront, because we're talking millions of dollars, you know, and damage that can be caused by one of these events. And speaking from my personal experience, I've worked with organizations that had outstanding requests and statements of work, and they were looking for, you know, security assessments, and they got nailed while they were sitting there waiting for their security assessment. I helped one 3 months ago, so I don't want us to be one of those organizations. And so I think you kind of share that, you know, in some of the comments that you made back. So that was my only purpose, Commissioner Lawrence, and I appreciate the feedback.
Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate Commissioner Kenny asked all those critical questions, and also really appreciate that Commissioner Micah to bring in the action. This is not directing detail. That basically, one thing we got to remember, with all your background, you cannot accept, like pretending you don't know anything. Me, I do not know anything security. So I trust my fellow commissioner in the area that he's asking. And I looking from your language, the body language, you agree to that it's worth a while. If you do not agree, you can come up and say, yeah, there's no need to do it. It's fine. But I see what you're doing there. And I really appreciate, because it is what the board have. It will have different opinion, a different experience, contribute to this. And we are holding the administration accountable, right? If anything happened, anything attack happened, then they say, whoa, how come the board did not ask a critical question? So I completely support what Commissioner Micah is doing. So actually I raised my hand even before that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just last question is this is going ahead, the chief has signed off on it. You're not asking us to approve it.
I'm not asking to approve, but I am also asking right now if what I was hearing is an objection to even proceeding or just doing something in addition.
No, not at all. Just,
Okay.
sorry, I didn't.
Gotcha.
In addition,
Thank
All
you
right,
for asking.
I
the
just
clarification.
wanted to
So-
make sure.
So I guess I just want to make sure that the board, one of the things that Chris brought up is that as a result of having the state auditor do this security audit, then part of that, an agreement is we have to do a public hearing on the audit. And so I guess I just want to make sure the board is okay with having the public hearing associated with the audit, because that's a little bit different than that's a different requirement. That I just want to make sure the board articulate that when we move forward with this, that we understand that we're going to have a formal public hearing with regards to the results of the audit, obviously redacted. And that's my biggest concern, to make sure the board knows that when we do this, we're forcing the board, as a result of us signing it, that we're making you have a public hearing on the topic, and want to make sure you concur with that before we move forward.
in lieu of not paying for it, we get to have a public hearing, which is the one string attached to it.
So I do have a real questions on the public hearing. What, in the past, how does a public hearing, just any public, or basically a lot of IT firm come and look at that and see the result? Or, I mean, you know that today we open a public hearing, nobody comes. So I'm not sure what would that public hearing means.
I think it's more geared toward possibly like maybe cities or other types of organizations where they might bring that concern up. I don't really know what would be brought forward from us. And at the same time, it's not really, you can't really discuss details of a security nature in a public forum. So
Right.
at the very least, it would be like,
You got a
What-
DUI.
yeah, what did you do, or what are you doing to correct whatever findings might have been found or might not have been found? They won't know the specific findings. It's mainly just showing what they did, and we can just basically assess that, you know, we're taking these steps and we're taking action to correct whatever might have been there. I don't even know what they could ask and what we could actually answer, but that's part of the deal.
Is there any other concern? I mean, you're the one that brought it up, so I just.
No, I just want to make sure that's the one
Caveat.
hitch that's actually going to force the board to add an item to their agenda. And I just want to make sure everybody was okay with that. That's the only concern I would have, is I don't want to sign something that forces the board to have a public hearing when I just want to make sure that was clear, because it's kind of unique. That's a unique thing. I haven't seen that before. So
Thanks
as
for
long
calling
as,
that out.
as long as the board understands what we're going to sign and is totally okay with it, then I think we're good to go.
So if,
So no formal motion to tell you it's okay. All right, then we're good.
so you have no motion. So I understand that basically two ideas here. We approve on this audit, and then you also want go to private firm to see what
Just to
that is,
figure out how much it would cost.
how much
long
it costs and
would take.
everything. Okay,
It's more the duration, waiting for 10 months. This
Right.
is- I understand they're probably backlogged on all the things that comes with a free service. But if I can get a free steak in a year and get a really nice steak now, I'll take it both. So,
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will say also in the document too, we do check-ins. I think it's usually within like 24 hours, I think, of when they do an actual part of it. So, you know, the penetration testing or whatever it is. So they are doing check-ins, and it's not like they find a critical vulnerability and they're going to wait 10 months to tell us. It says in here that if they find a vulnerability that they deem critical, they're going to bring it to us right away as well. So we do get check-ins, and we will have paperwork that we see ahead of time. The 8 to 10 months is really just to get the full comprehensive report with all the details.
so that would start now, and you said the end of it would be.
So-
January.
Right now, if we sign this, they can get us on the schedule to start in April, and then it could potentially go until January of next year, but he seemed to think that it wouldn't take that long.
So
So,
if they could get it done in time for budget season, that would be nice, but we'll just see.
So maybe I'll just support your also on the private too. But I do, I do not believe in sole sourcing. So if you come to that, we have a discussion.
I think I'm very comfortable figuring out
Yeah.
with Chris and Shane, what it would cost us to have a third party, not the state,
Right.
provide it, and the timeline. And we can bring that forward. If we can bring it to to the work session and give you a quick rebrief, or we can do it in the Chase report at the last meeting of this month. And if it, and Chris may find that, holy crap, this is a great thing. And we may bring more formal things moving forward as a result of timelines and everything, Commissioner, you talked about. And Chris may say, we need to do both, and here's why. And obviously then we'd come forward and, look at what he's currently got in his budget. And if it's additional dollars needed, we'd have a conversation about that and see what the board's interest in, based on what we find out. So
Thank you.
I think we can do it. I don't think it's a huge time crunch, to get the cost and the timeline. It may take a little bit longer to do a formal process to hire a consultant team to do that. But we can get what the price would be in a timeline and based on what Chris needs, or what he envisions for this to be. And I think we can do that in fairly short order.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chris. On to committee updates, bylaws with Commissioner Rowland.
We are scheduled to have, hopefully one of our final bylaws meetings that next Monday. So we'll, have a report for you, at our work session next week.
Okay. Finance Committee with Commissioner Chance and.
Yeah, we're
Seattle
gonna,
on it.
we're gonna meet tomorrow with Commissioner Lawrence.
Okay.
And tomorrow.
Thank you. And intergovernmental with Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, I don't have any updates for you at this time, just as a result of my sickness this week. I've been kind of down, so sorry about that.
Okay. Snow 911, we have a finance committee meeting coming up. I think on Thursday this week, so in a couple days. So I'll have something then at the following meeting. Commissioner comments.
Okay, on the Snow and one.
Yeah.
Committee. So I think you represent the whole organization, right? So one thing I do want to I would like to raise a question in the finance committee. When is the Moss Adam consultant actually coming in? Because I got more than a year already. They said they're coming to do that. I would just like you to follow up to
Sure.
make sure they are continue doing that. And also part of that is the software. They're still using QuickBook. That's my biggest concern. That was I don't know if they have changed it yet or anything. So that two concerns I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, I can carry that forward. Writing it down. Any other commissioner comments? Once, twice?
Okay, I just want to say that I really appreciate the meeting that we have. I think it's a good start. I know that there's some commissioner not happy with it, but to me, it is we do have the issues. I think we need to continually conscious about among ourselves. Kind of like I equate that kind of what do you call and the marriage counseling. One session does not solve the problem. So whatever format it is, I think we should focus on that. And I would like to have continue study on that. And another one is I just want a full disclosure that we a group of leaders in community which we form a called Asian Service Center, which is modeled after CISC, which is a huge organization down in Chinatown. What they started 50 years ago with just a group of social work students in UW starting that, helping immigrants to give them information where to get the driver license, how to kind of assimilate into the community. And they have done a very good job. Since then, they actually extended to not just serving the Chinese community, but also Hispanic, Russians, Ukrainians, all the new immigrants. And that's really helpful. So a group of us started this in January. We did that. I shared with with chief and other thing. There will be some interaction. We need them to come in, like prevent fall and other prevention thing. I think that's a good thing, but I will definitely being neutral, even I'm chair, they let them communicate with them, but I think that will help us to mutual benefit. So I wish anyone interested on show the, I mean, it's amazing. We only have 2 months, right? And I was gone for 1 month. We already get funding from Verdon and other, we got, well, first of all, we got board director like Bill Chan of Edmonds and Rich Khan is from Mukilteo. We continue, we have a Edmond, very high up in Edmond College, be a board of members. So we'll continue doing that. We can Action Jackson, really. So I just be full disclosure, so the board aware I'm taking as a chair on this community service in there. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Anything else? I just have one thing in that last week was the monthly Snow Owl Commissioner meeting. And it sounded like Commissioner Kenny, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that Surfer had recently completed the CFAI certification.
Surfer, yeah, that's what they said, yeah.
CFAI,
Yes. And that is,
that was CFAI. What's the acronym for?
I'm getting there.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to pull it up. See, I think it was on this phone that I was looking at it.
Does anyone out in the audience?
Yep, there we go. This. Center for Public Safety Excellence. 3 to 5 years. And that sounds like Marysville RFA is going through it right now. Does that sound right? Is that what also was communicated? So I believe that's what I heard. So I was just curious, asking my tenured commissioners. I believe it's been around for a while and was curious about what there's any particular reason why we haven't gone through that process yet. Chief Eastman?
The District 1 did go through the process.
Oh, yeah.
And we got up to the point, we didn't finish but we did do the process. We did the self-assessment. And I want to say it was a good 2.5, 3 years of work. There was value in it because the work we did was for us. We just didn't complete and submit our final application to actually go through the formal accreditation process. We stopped short of that.
Okay.
Now that we've become an RFA, it would be a new organization and we'd have to do the whole thing again.
Yeah, we'd have to go back from the start and
The
do it.
benefits from it, other than, I guess, bragging rights and oops, sorry. I was just asking what the benefits are, other than being able to put it on our, website. Are there any tangible benefits?
So I wasn't part of I was a small part. Sean and I were a small part of the process, but it goes through and looks at all the things you do, looks at policies, looks at your whole organization. Part of it's you do what you say you do, and what you have written for what you do, you actually do it. And the formal process has third-party folks come in and look and evaluate what you say you do and confirm that it actually is what you're doing. And so I think the self-assessment process for us was a good thing. It
Identifying
highlight
gaps and.
yeah, it allowed us to yeah, there's certain, yes, but the challenge is when you're doing it with the end of getting accredited, this is my editorial of it, is you tend to do things to meet accreditation versus get the organization where we need to be for real, right? So you can do things on paper and do it for the short term. The goal though is to do the self-assessment for the long term.
Yeah.
And I think the most important part is the self-assessment and being honest with ourselves and and do it with that in mind if we move forward with that versus having the goal necessarily be accreditation. That's the icing on the cake, in my opinion. It's the 3 years of looking internally where you are, what you do, from policies to deployment to, I mean, there's components for the governance, right? So there is value in it. It's just, it's a really time consuming thing. And we had 2 people doing that full time for a long time. So I think it's a good idea. I think there is value in it, not necessarily getting accredited and putting the sticker on the truck and on the 8 cars and saying that. I think that's a good goal though. I mean, I'm not against being accredited, but it's a lot of work. And you have to be committed to doing it and have the staff time to be able to do that. And we all have to be committed to it.
But it
It's-
doesn't open up any opportunities, funding, anything like that. It's more just for your own.
Because unlike other accreditations where you accreditate under national standards, you accreditate to yourself. In other words, so in other places that they accreditate to, nationally recognized best practice. Where in fire accreditation, we have our set of response standards that's adopted by the board. And we accredit to those standards, not necessarily, and I'll use the term 1710s. I mean, we all know what that is, right? So they have certain response time standards that so it's different than that. You accreditate more to who you are and what you've set up as being your targets, your goals organizationally. And then you
I
get,
apologize to my commissioners.
Yep.
Who was
And you get
commissioner
graded for
comment
that.
time, So,
So-
yeah. We could talk more about it offline, but yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Nope, Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I would just appreciate that intelligent analysis of deciding to get accreditation or not. It really makes sense. Just make it real. Learn what you need to learn and apply it to ourselves. Thank you.
All right, and seeing no further comments with that, I go ahead and adjourn the meeting. You're at 8:22. Thanks, everyone.